Well, we've got some more fantastic people behind the breakfast bar with us this morning to go through the papers. Political editor of The Sun on Sunday, David Wooding, and author Nikki Hodgson are both in the studio with us. Nikki, we've got to start with an absolutely galling story in The Guardian, which just sort of best exemplifies some of the situations, the dire situations people in the NHS are facing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's important to say that this sounds like it's one-off, but that does not make it any the better. So this is a story about Laura Brodie and her partner. Laura gave birth prematurely to her baby son at home, and sadly, he died. And she went to hospital. She went to University Hospital Lewisham, where she was told that she couldn't take his remains to the mortuary because they didn't have the right paperwork. So she actually had to take the remains back to her own home and store them in the fridge. And it's just, you can't imagine...
How can that be right?
You can't imagine, first of all, what Laura was going through and her partner. But more than that, what on earth was going on at the hospital that somebody thought that was the right thing to tell this person, no matter if the protocol was followed or not, or, you know, it just is totally barbaric. So, very rightly so, her story has come to the fore. And the Minister for Women's Health, Maria Caulfield, has said, deepest sympathies with her and we need to do more. But, what on earth do you do to give someone recompense in this situation?
Oh, you can't. Can you? You can't. But Lewisham really need to look in, and whoever gave that advice, maybe it was just someone who didn't know what they were doing, found themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, maybe it was.
It just shouldn't happen.
Maybe it was. I mean, I used to be a temp in NHS hospitals when I was first in London, and I did cancer waiting lists and things like that, and I didn't know what on earth I was doing. Honestly, I really didn't. But the point was that you would hope somebody would have enough sense to see somebody was massively grieving and totally distressed, and they needed more help than that.
Yeah.
So it's a terrible story. I'm so sorry to Laura and her partner.
Yeah, this is awful. Look, sticking with the NHS, David, in the Daily Mail, we need at least 13,000 new beds.
Yes, and this is causing terrible delays in getting people treated when they're taken into A&E. We've got the second lowest number of beds in Europe, it says in the EU, but we're not in the EU anymore. But of course, we are only one country in the EU has a worse situation than us, and it means that because of this, there's something like 24,000 people have had trolley waits in A&E of more than 12 hours, which is astonishing. So it's missing all record.
We have invested. I mean, we're always told that the whatever else has gone on, investment in the NHS has continued. So we're told, year on year on year. So how are we down so many beds?
And we've just seen the government pump loads of money in as a result of COVID, the COVID Recovery Fund, and we're paying an extra 1.25% on our national insurance contributions. The problem is that nobody feels willing to criticise the NHS, and it does need reform. Putting the money in, Gordon Brown did it in the Labour years when he was Chancellor, and there wasn't any palpable improvement. So investment and reform have to come along at the same time.
There's another really difficult story in The Guardian, Nikki, about police and their treatment of and the aftercare, really, of rape victims and things like their data, what they should be storing, what they shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, it is a depressing story, but there's a positive end to it, so that's kind of why I've chosen it this morning. So it's to do with when people report rape, sexual assaults to the police, they're given a form to sign which gives the police access to all kinds of personal information. It's WhatsApp messages, it's counselling records, it's even primary school records. God knows what they need that for. But it puts victims off coming forward. And by comparison, people who are being accused of rape, fair enough, it's got to be a criminal investigation, don't have anywhere like the same interrogation of their data at that point. So what's happening now is the Information Commissioner's Office is saying that police have to stop this or they're going to get fined. So finally, this is something that Vera Baird, who's the Victims Commissioner for London and for England and Wales, has been campaigning for years now, that we have to stop this interrogation of victims' data because that is partly why the rape conviction rate is so low.
It's difficult, isn't it? I don't want to sound insensitive, but I mean, there have been cases where allegations have been made and it's been through things like WhatsApp messages that have been found that someone has been cleared. So, I mean, how do you balance this out?
Yeah, and I mean, I suppose that's why the messages to date have been preserved. But I think it's got to be on a kind of needs-must basis what you access. It shouldn't just be one... I know why they do it. They give you a piece of paper, you sign the form, then they can get whatever they want when they want it.
Yeah.
So it's got to be, well, we think we've got reason to suspect we need to read those messages, so therefore they ask for the consent. It's surely got to be done that way.
Yeah, that's a fair point. David, sperm donors, or one particular sperm donor in the Daily Mail this morning. What's he been up to?
Well, it's the father of 15 children who's donated his sperm to lesbian women who want to start a family. And he advertised his services on social media. But he didn't point out that he had a hereditary condition which could be passed on to those children. He had a thing called Fragile X syndrome, which leads to low IQ and development deliveries, and it's incurable. What's happened is he's gone to court in Derby, the High Court in Derby, and the judge, he wanted to have access to one of these children, and the judge has taken the unusual step of naming him because she believes he will be further offering his sperm for children and without the recipients knowing about it.
But shouldn't he? You'd have to declare this, wouldn't you? As a registered donor.
Well, you should, but he seems to have been doing it on social media again. It's another social media story in many ways, and so of course the judge fears that by keeping the anonymity of this man, it might help him to continue his deeds. And anybody, of course, who's thinking of using his sperm would perhaps do a Google search and his name will pop up in the future.
This is what they find.
Yeah.
Let's move on. We've been talking about the cost of living and how people are trying to save. Well, the Financial Times have a magazine famously called How to Spend It, which I don't think would necessarily cater to any of us here. But they're going through a bit of a rebrand because perhaps talking about how to spend huge sums of money is maybe falling a little bit out of favour.
Yeah, it's a funny story because the Financial Times launched this magazine a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago. And I always remember thinking when I was pretty poor journalist, well, that's a bit bad taste, isn't it? Who's got any money to spend? Certainly not us. Who's got that kind of money? And it seems like that has finally caught up with them. Joe Ellison, the magazine's editor, has said the change is necessary to reflect a world with deeper sensitivities. So the magazine is now going to be known by its initials, that'd be an acronym. And
so instead of how to spend it,
it could be how to save it, how to splurge it. There've been some other suggestions of what the S could stand for, which were turned down, such as how to snort it or how to steal it.
Oh, right. Excellent.
For obvious reasons. But it is quite amusing.
It is quite amusing. Some people, they just don't read the room.
They don't
read the room.
I'll tell you what... How to afford the FT? It's not a cheap publication. I mean, I don't get it delivered at home. I wait to get it in the office. It's so expensive.
I don't know how much it is.
Let's just have a look today. £3.10.
£3.10. It's a lot of money
for a weekday.
If you wanted to buy
I think newspapers are all good value for money, I must stress.
Oh, yeah.
Especially yours, David.
The Sun is quite a bargain.
And one of their stories there, cost crisis. Small businesses feel squeezed. Well, they may not be buying... they certainly won't be buying how to spend it, that's for sure.
No. Look, David, Nikki, thank you both. We'll catch you a little bit later on.